Welcome to this programming tutorial. Today we will be looking at subroutines. We've mentioned subroutines a few times in this course, but now we will learn what they are and how they are used. Subroutines are out-of-line blocks of code that are executed when called. Subroutines are like video game CDs. You could have 100 CDs, but they will never be used until you insert them into a games console. There are three types of subroutines to look at. One you might already be very familiar with, and that is methods. A method uses a dot and can apply itself to an object to return a value. For example, .length will return the length of a piece of data, or the size of an array. The main two types of subroutines we are using are functions and procedures. They have one key difference between them. A procedure will run a set of instructions when called. A function may run a set of instructions but will always return something. Let's create a procedure. To start, I will type out static. We won't discuss what static does in this lesson, but understand we will be using it when creating subroutines. You will notice that we created the procedure outside of the main subroutine. This is because we don't want to create subroutines inside of subroutines. Next, we will type out void. This tells the program that we do not want to return anything and we just want to run instructions. Next, we will specify a name for the subroutine. Let's call it greeting. We then write brackets, and then we write curly brackets which contain our instructions. Let's do something simple. We will ask the user to enter their name, and then we will output hello concatenated with the user input. Now, at the moment, this subroutine is ignored by the program. To use it in the program, we need to call it. To call a subroutine, we type the subroutine name followed by brackets. Let's run the program. As you can see, as the subroutine is called, we are asked to enter our name, and then the greeting is outputted. Keep in mind, you can call the subroutine as many times as you want. Now let's change our procedure slightly. Instead of asking for user input in the subroutine, let's do that in our main subroutine. Now, how do we use the user input inside of our greeting subroutine? This is where parameters come into play. In the empty brackets of subroutines, we can specify variables. Let's specify a string variable called user input. Notice that we have to specify the data types of our variables or parameters. Now, whenever we use the greeting subroutine, we have to specify the parameters. Let's place the name variable inside our brackets. That will map to the user input variable inside our subroutine and allow us to use the data inside our subroutine by writing user input. As you can see, the program works as intended. Next, let's look at using functions. Let's change the subroutine so that it is called adder, and it will take two parameters. These two parameters are integers. As it's a function, no matter how many instructions we use, at the end of the function, we must return a value. In this case, we will return the value using the return command. Let's add the two parameters together and then assign them to a variable. We will then return the variable. As you can see, there's an error. When we return a value, we need to specify the data type of the value that we are returning. Remember the void part of our subroutine? To fix this, we can change void to int as we are returning an integer value. Now let's ask the user to enter two integer values. Remember that we need to convert the readLine method as it is a string by default. Then we will need to output the function using the two inputs as parameters. Let's run the program. As you can see, the program takes two inputs and passes them through a subroutine to add them together. Functions can be a bit confusing, but try to imagine what is happening. The user inputs two numbers, and the function inside the output turns into the returned value. If the user enters 2 and 5, then the function turns into 7. That is why we have to output it. Keep in mind as well that you can also store the returned value into a variable, like this. As you can see, we are assigning the returned value. Before we finish, let's now take a small look at the main subroutine. This subroutine is an entryway into our program, like the front door. As you can see, it takes in a string array of arguments. The string array of arguments passes in command line arguments that lets your program run. Without it, you would not be able to run the program. Practice using subroutines in your program. For example, build a subroutine that calculates Pythagoras' theorem. Thank you for watching this tutorial. I hope you have found it helpful.